Nina Stibbe is a renowned comic writer. She is one of a growing line of novelists from the county of Leicestershire, such as Sue Townsend and Anne Fine, to mention only two. Her literary success, however, came relatively late in life. Nina was born into the family that owned one of Leicester's largest manufacturing businesses, Stibbe Machinery. The company's factory stood on what is now the Inner Ring Road. The name of Stibbe may be familiar to you from the recent University of Leicester excavation on the site of the former factory, which has yielded spectacular Roman mosaics. Nina says she has rarely had so many phone calls as when the mosaic came to light, from people assuming she must know all about the archaeology. But the family firm went out of business in the 1970s, and even before that, life took an awkward turn. After growing up in a beautiful arts and crafts style house in Clarendon Park, not far from the university, Nina, with her sister and brothers, moved out to a Leicestershire village with their mother. Her poignant comedy, A Man at the Helm, dramatises this unsettled existence with great good humour. From an early age, Nina wanted to be a writer. In her teens, however, there seemed little chance of this happening, until one day she responded to an advertisement for the position of nanny to a family in London. The household turned out to be a hub of London literary life, with famous writers and television producers dropping in regularly. Nina started writing letters home, telling her sister, with penetrating observation and delightful irony, about the amiable chaos of family life in the early 1980s and of the foibles of the creative minds she encountered every day. It was only many years later, when she was invited to celebrate the birthday of the mother of that London household, that Nina asked her sister to dig out those old letters. When she read out some of them at the party, a publisher expressed interest, and the rest is history. Nina was offered her first book contract at the age of 50. The letters were published as Love Nina and later dramatised on television. They proved a literary sensation. Yet why should a teenager's recollections of everyday chatter and family doings prove to have real literary merit? The answer lies in Nina Stibbe's amazing memory and her acute ear for the way people talk. The dialogue she writes must be one of the best records of intelligent English irony and sarcasm that has ever been put down on paper. There is also the interest of seeing well-known characters leap off the page. Above all, the renowned actor and dramatist Alan Bennett, whose fussy, lugubrious diction is irresistibly brought to life. Love Nina was Non-Fiction Book of the Year at the National Book Awards and has been followed by a series of books, some based around Nina's fictionalised alter ego, Lizzie Vogel. These include Man at the Helm, already mentioned, and Paradise Lodge, set in a retirement home and described by one reviewer as chaos among the commodes. Just a few weeks ago, Nina published An Almost Perfect Christmas, a collection of ironic musings on the festive season. We can be sure that many more delights are in store. Nina's books have been translated into at least 8 languages, but her work finds particular resonance in this region since Leicestershire features prominently in her novels. Acknowledged as a Leicester writer, she happily responds to many invitations from the media to comment on local matters, whether it be, as she puts it, football or floor mosaics. Before her newfound literary success, Nina had a professional career as a leading editor of education books. She recalls with pride how she commissioned school teachers to write about teaching practice and experience, shifting her publisher's list away from educational theory towards works of value to working teachers. She remembers her own joy in learning, especially at primary school. Despite this, it was only after she reached London that, thanks to the encouragement of her London family and friends, including her current partner, Nina went to university to study English literature. She describes this as a turning point, an opportunity without which she could not have achieved all she has. Education is one of her passions, about which she may say a few words in a moment. Nina Stibbe has never stopped writing since her teens. Her deserved success shows the value of persistence. She attributes that success to learning how to write in her own voice, the true voice she first used in those teenage letters. For the wisdom and humour in her writing, and for her contribution to Leicestershire's growing literary reputation, we are honouring her today. Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Council and the Senate, I present Nina Stibbe that you may confer upon her the Honorary Degree of Doctor of Letters.
Thank you, Professor Shipley. Recently, in light of this award today, I've been thinking a lot about my education journey. The first thing I remember really wanting was to go to school. My sister had gone off a year before me because she was older than me and had come back cleverer and worldly and clutching paintings and bits of writing. When it was my turn to start this nursery school, I was invited to do a painting, and I went off to the easel with my idea for my painting, these orange flowers, these marigolds that I was going to paint and take home. But disaster, there was no orange paint. And I honestly didn't know what to do about this. And then a teacher suddenly appeared, and she showed me how to mix my own orange. And it was like a miracle. I just mixed a bit of yellow and a bit of red, and I'm sure you all know how to do it. But to me at that time, it was a miracle, it was magic. And little miracles and bits of magic kept happening to me all through my primary school years. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Secondary school didn't go quite so well. A combination of things meant that I fell behind in my studies, and I ended up leaving school. I think I was probably about 15, and I hadn't got any exams, any qualifications at all. And until recently, talking to Professor Shipley, I didn't like to even think about those, years, it was probably a year. I didn't like to think about it. I wrote it off because I felt I'd failed, and I didn't like to think about my tutor at that time, Mr. Maynard, because I felt I'd failed him and he'd failed me, and it had been a disaster. But thinking about it now, I realise something about that failure, which was the way my teacher responded to my decision to leave, my failure, meant that later on I grasped opportunities when they came up. Because this teacher didn't catastrophise, he didn't criticise me, he wasn't even particularly cross. He just said this to me: "Okay, go, but promise me you'll come back, because you're bright and you'll enjoy it. Go back to education later on." And I didn't really think about it. I didn't think I'd thought about it anyway. I did claw my way back into higher education, and though I wasn't the most prepared student because of my lack of formal qualifications, I was very happy to be there, and the teachers, the tutors, the lecturers were very pleased to have me there as a different kind of student. And one of them, I remember, wrote on the bottom of one of my essays, I think none of them could ever give me an A because I wasn't an A student. But he wrote this little comment that wasn't, particularly poignant, but it was this. He wrote, "This is a very fine piece of writing." And it didn't seem like much at the time to me, except it must have unconsciously confirmed to me that I, a not a very good student, could produce a very fine piece of writing. And it also occurs to me, and has occurred to me while thinking about this award, is that our teachers aren't always teachers, and our lessons are not always academic. My teachers have also been my family. The sister who's worked and taught in the NHS here in Leicester for the last 30 years, more than 30 years, I think. And my mother, who brought us up to love books and filled the house with books when we could afford it, and then when we couldn't, she sent us to the library. The seemingly strict stepfather who appeared in our lives at a really difficult time and taught us the self-esteem raising art of polishing our shoes. The friend who read every single book on my A-level syllabus that I studied on my own in my evenings when I was a nanny. He read every single book and taught me how to study them because I didn't know. And that helped me get the A-level I needed to get into Thames Polytechnic. There was also the boss, when I was 20 years old, that Professor Shipley mentioned, who was in the middle of this literary, glamorous world, but nevertheless was as interested in what I had to say as she was all those glamorous writers and film directors. You are all now going to go on into the worlds of further research and work, travel, community, family, politics, whatever you do. And what people in my position up here like to say at this time to you is never stop learning. And I'm going to say that to you as well, but I'm going to add, start teaching. All of you will teach in one way or another, either in educational institutions or in some of the less obvious ways that I've just mentioned, as a team member, manager, sibling, mentor, leader, friend, parent. Be wise and patient in that role, like my teachers were with me. You will, without even knowing it, be role models. Things you say and do will have an impact. They might be taken to heart. Even the tiniest comment you write on the bottom of a colleague's piece of work will be remembered, might be remembered, could be acted upon, even years later. So engage, influence, be positive and nurturing whenever you can. And to all of you graduating today, and to your teachers here and your friends and family, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.